Welcome back, deep divers. We're diving into some really, let's just say, unique source material today.
Yeah, this one's out there.
It's a space opera concept,
All right.
but it's got weaponized space squirrels and a villain obsessed with bratwurst. I'm not making this up.
Seriously, when I first saw this, I thought, is this a joke?
Right. But no, someone actually put a lot of thought into this concept.
Oh, there's pages and pages of notes, recordings, even concept art. It's pretty wild.
So our mission today is to unpack this thing, see if we can make sense of the madness.
We'll see if there's some brilliance hidden beneath all the absurdity.
Exactly. So let's start with the obvious, the space squirrels. What can you tell us about them?
Well, they're not just cute, fuzzy critters. We're talking genetically modified, decked out in power armor, and armed to the teeth.
Okay, so it's like a sci-fi take on those squirrel rampages you hear about in the news sometimes.
Right, except these guys have plasma pistols and jetpacks.
Jetpacks?
Yeah.
Seriously. What's next? Laser eyes.
Actually, there's a mention of genetically engineered laser squirrels further down in the notes.
Oh boy, this is just getting started.
It's a wild ride, but yeah, the space squirrels, they're a major part of this whole thing.
I'm curious, what's their motivation? Why are they fighting in this space opera?
Vengeance. Well, nut vengeance.
Nut vengeance.
Yeah, the documents actually say their battle cry is, "Nut vengeance will be ours."
So someone did something to their nuts.
It seems that way. Maybe their forest got turned into a space mall or something.
Poor squirrels. But seriously, they sound both dangerous and hilarious. I mean, how do you fight an army of flying squirrels with guns?
It wouldn't be easy. The recordings talk about how they're incredibly agile and adaptable, capable of infiltrating even the most secure spaceships.
So they're like tiny furry ninjas with a serious weapons upgrade.
Exactly. But there's a catch.
Oh, there's always a catch. What is it?
Well, they're still squirrels at heart. They're easily distracted, prone to squabbling over nuts.
So in the middle of a heated space battle, they might just stop and start chasing each other up a tree.
Basically, the recordings mention instances of them getting sidetracked by shiny objects. One time, they completely abandoned their mission because they got distracted by a character's prosthetic leg.
Okay, so they're a force to be reckoned with, but also completely unpredictable. That adds an element of chaos to this whole space opera thing.
It does. And it's that unpredictability that makes them so interesting. They're not just a throwaway joke. They represent this chaotic element that can disrupt even the most carefully laid plans.
You know, it's funny because we often think of space operas as these grand, epic stories, very serious, full of complex politics and galaxy-spanning conflicts.
Right. Good versus evil on a massive scale.
Exactly. But this concept is throwing all that out the window. It's embracing the ridiculous.
And that's what makes it so refreshing.
Okay, so we've got these weaponized squirrels running around causing chaos. Now let's talk about the villain of this space opera, Heavy Hitler. And let me just say, the name alone is enough to raise some eyebrows.
You're not kidding. And he's every bit as outrageous as his name suggests.
So what's his deal? Is he a power-hungry dictator bent on galactic domination?
Well, sort of. But his real obsession isn't power, it's bratwurst.
Bratwurst, seriously.
Yeah. The recordings describe him as obese and incompetent, completely obsessed with this specific type of German sausage. He's constantly snacking on bratwurst. He commands a fleet of spaceships shaped like bratwursts. It's his whole thing.
Okay, so this is definitely not your typical space opera villain. You're telling me the biggest threat to the galaxy is a guy who loves sausage a little too much.
Well, he does have a massive army and some pretty advanced technology at his disposal. But yeah, his primary motivation seems to be satisfying his insatiable craving for bratwurst.
That's almost endearing in a weird way.
It is. He's this over-the-top villain, but his obsession with something so mundane makes him oddly relatable.
I can't wait to see how they portray him visually. I'm picturing him in a custom-made spacesuit that can barely contain his bratwurst-stuffed physique.
Oh, I'm sure they won't disappoint on that front. The creator's notes mention him getting stuck in doorways and delivering his villainous monologues while wheezing for breath.
That's both hilarious and kind of sad.
Exactly. He's a walking contradiction. A menacing villain who's also kind of pathetic.
And I hear he has a nemesis.
He does.
Heavy Hitter, if I remember correctly.
That's the one.
What's their dynamic like?
Think less epic showdown and more like two toddlers fighting over a toy.
So, lots of name-calling and childish antics.
Pretty much.
Okay, so we've got weaponized, vengeance-seeking squirrels, and a bratwurst-obsessed villain who's constantly battling his nemesis. What else does this crazy space opera have in store for us?
Well, there's one more element we need to talk about, and this one might be the most bizarre of them all.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
You remember those sexy Sharons we mentioned earlier?
The seductive clones? Oh, yeah, I definitely want to hear more about them.
Buckle up. Things are about to get even weirder.
Okay, so we've got these sexy Sharons.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they fit into all of this?
Well, like I said, they're clones, genetically identical copies of someone named Sharon Tees.
And who is this Sharon Tees? Is she like some kind of celebrity?
It's not entirely clear from the notes. I think she might be a member of the Spaceship Falcon's crew. Maybe the captain or something.
So why would anyone want to clone her?
Ah, that's where Heavy Hitler comes in. He seems to have a bit of an obsession with Sharon Tees.
I'm sensing a thing here. This guy has a thing for, unusual obsessions.
Yeah, you could say that. So instead of creating an army of super soldiers, he decided to make an army of, well, sexy Sharons.
Seductive clones.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess it makes sense in a twisted kind of way. Use their beauty and charm as weapons.
Exactly. But here's the thing, they're not very good at it.
Oh, I was wondering about that. Are they actually effective as, weapons of seduction?
Not really. The recording suggests they're more concerned with their appearance and fighting amongst themselves than actually carrying out their mission. They're constantly bickering, gossiping, worried about who has the best hair or the tightest outfit.
So they're basically a bunch of space-age mean girls.
Pretty much.
Do they at least have cool weapons?
Oh, they have weapons, but they're more like beauty accessories with a deadly twist.
Like what?
Think lipstick tasers, compact mirror lasers, perfume that doubles as knockout gas.
So they're dangerous, but in a completely ridiculous way. I can't decide if that makes them more or less threatening.
It definitely adds an element of surprise. You're not expecting to get taken down by a tube of lipstick.
It just occurred to me, having a bunch of clones running around could be pretty unsettling for the real Sharon Tees.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I mean, imagine seeing dozens of copies of yourself, all trying to be sexier and more seductive than the original.
It would definitely mess with your head. Maybe that's part of Heavy Hitler's plan. To undermine her confidence, make her doubt her own identity.
It adds a whole other layer to this whole concept. It's not just about the laughs. There's a potential for some real psychological drama there.
Yeah, it's surprisingly complex for something so outlandish.
Speaking of outlandish, we have to talk about the visuals. I mean, we've got weaponized squirrels, a sausage-loving dictator, and now an army of seductive clones. How do you even begin to bring this to life on screen?
It would be a challenge, that's for sure.
One wrong move, and it could end up looking like a really bad sci-fi B-movie.
You've got to strike that balance between believability and absurdity. Make it look cool and exciting, but also not take itself too seriously.
Do the materials give us any clues about how they plan to do that?
There's some concept art. They're going for a slightly stylized look.
Stylized how?
Well, the space squirrels, for example, they have these big, expressive eyes and these over-the-top poses.
So cute but deadly.
Exactly. And Heavy Hitler, he's exactly what you'd expect.
Giant spacesuit that barely contains his belly.
Oh, yeah. And a helmet shaped like a bratwurst, of course.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
And what about the sexy Sharons? What are they wearing?
Let's just say their outfits are very revealing. Lots of metallics, strategically placed cutouts, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like they're leaning into the whole sexy clone trope.
They are, but there's a sense of humor about it. It's not meant to be taken too seriously.
Well, good. Because this whole concept is already pretty out there.
We've been talking about all these separate elements, but there's one thing that brings them all together.
What's that?
It's, well, it's a bit hard to explain.
Try me.
Okay, so you've got the space squirrels, right?
Right.
And you've got the sexy Sharons.
Yep.
Well, Heavy Hitler, in his infinite wisdom, decided to combine the two.
He did what?
He created a hybrid, a fusion of space squirrel and sexy Sharon.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
He created sexy squirrels.
He did. And that, my friend, is where things get really interesting.
Okay, sexy squirrels, go on. I'm almost afraid to ask.
Yeah, it's definitely the most, how should I put this?
The most what?
Bizarre, disturbing. I know, pick your adjective.
I mean, we've already got weaponized squirrels and a bratwurst-obsessed dictator.
True, true. But this takes things to a whole new level of weird.
So, help me wrap my head around this. What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, Heavy Hitler wanted to create the ultimate weapon, right?
I guess that tracks with the whole evil dictator thing.
So he takes his two most, let's say, creative inventions.
Space squirrels and sexy Sharons.
Mingo. and he mashes them together.
He genetically engineered a hybrid, a creature that's part space squirrel, part seductive clone.
Exactly.
I'm trying to picture this in my head, and it's not pretty.
The source material doesn't go into a lot of detail, which is probably a good thing.
But there are some notes. Something about them being grotesque yet strangely alluring.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
I'm honestly not sure if I want to see what that looks like in real life.
It's probably best left to the imagination.
So what's your purpose? What do these sexy squirrels actually do in this story?
Well, I think they represent a unique challenge for the heroes. They're not just physically dangerous, but also psychologically disturbing. Imagine trying to fight off a swarm of creatures that are both trying to kill you and seduce you at the same time.
Yeah, that's going to leave some psychological scars.
It's a scenario ripe for both comedy and drama.
I can see that. On one hand, it's hilarious. On the other hand, it's kind of messed up.
It's a delicate balance, that's for sure, and I think the creators are aware of that.
Do you think they're trying to make a statement about, like, the weaponization of sexuality or something?
It's possible. I mean, the whole concept is so over the top, it's hard to tell what's satire and what's just plain weird.
True. But even if it's just for laughs, it still makes you think, right?
Oh, absolutely. It challenges your expectations, makes you question what's possible in a story.
This whole space opera concept is like nothing I've ever seen before.
It's unique, that's for sure.
Do you think this kind of approach to science fiction, this embrace of the absurd, could catch on?
I think it has potential. People are always looking for something new, something different.
Especially in science fiction. It's a genre that can sometimes get bogged down in seriousness.
This concept injects a much-needed dose of humor into the mix.
And it's not just silly humor. It's smart, thought-provoking humor.
Exactly. It makes you laugh, but it also makes you think.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of space squirrels, bratwurst-obsessed dictators, seductive clones, and, yes, sexy squirrels, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I'd say don't be afraid to explore the strange, the unusual, the seemingly absurd.
Because sometimes the most outlandish ideas can lead to the most interesting discoveries.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday we'll actually see this space opera come to life on the big screen.
Now, that's a thought that's both exciting and terrifying at the same time.
But hey, that's what makes life interesting, right?
You got that right. Well, folks, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never be afraid to embrace the absurd.